we need clarity about our goals. We need to know where we are going. We need to have vision. And that vision has to be articulated. It has to be socially shared and discussed and formulated. There's a tendency when we get involved in the problems that are coming as a result of all of these lacks of implementation, of money, of resources, of models and information and vision. There's a very great tendency to go immediately to implementation and say, and talk first and primarily in that arena. How do we get governments to work better? How do we get the money raised? But before that, we need to be sure that our models are clear, that our information is accurate, and above all, we need to be sure that we know where we're going. Bob Costanza reminded me that the title of this session was Envisioning a Sustainable Future. And I realized that I had fallen into the trap that we modelers and that politicians and that almost everybody falls into, which is to take the last steps first, to talk about the implementation or the model with skipping over, taking for granted the vision or the goal. I better talk about vision and encourage us all to do that. A subject, by the way, which I could say I am completely unqualified to talk about, having had no training. In fact, I would say in the scientific northern training I've had, having been systematically untrained to find and communicate vision. But in another sense, I don't think any of us need training. I think what we need to do is to maybe brush away some of our training and rediscover our ability to vision, to see goals, to make the idea of a sustainable world a living picture in our minds and in other people's minds, so that we know what we're talking about and we know where we're going. What I'm going to do is just try to share with you the little bit I have learned by playing with the idea of vision and incorporating it into my own life. I think I probably don't need to tell you that when we, particularly we on the environmental side of things, start talking about a sustainable world, we somehow engender, I don't know if it's us or the audience we're speaking to, a vision of sacrifice, a vision of having much less, a vision of tight central control, of deep regulations, a loss of freedom. Whether we communicate that because it's in our heads or whether it's in the culture we're communicating to, I think you probably know that most environmentalists are not considered people who put forth exciting visions. They generally are assumed to be people who are calling for great sacrifice. And this must say something about the vision in our culture of what a sustainable world is like. And I think that we're all born with a sense of what the world should be like and what we deeply want the world to be like. You ask a child to make a vision of a sustainable world and it comes flowing forth. There's not a day worth of resistance. So this is clearly something that we have had engendered into us by two things, I think. One is the general culture, particularly the scientific objective culture. And secondly, I think by our disappointments as we grow old. We've tried things, they haven't worked. And instead of letting go of our, instead of using the haven't worked disappointments to learn lessons and become more effective in pushing toward our vision, rather we've let go of our vision. Remember that you are trying to state, articulate, or see what you really want, not what you think you can get. It's very quick for most of us rationally trained people to to sort of go out to the farthest envelope of what we think is possible. That we're putting all kinds of analysis and models in there about what is possible. I never would have said that it was possible for apartheid to end in South Africa or for the whole of the Eastern world to come back toward democracy, and yet it happened. So that tells you something about our models of possibility. You have to throw them away. You have to think about what you want. That's the essence of vision. What is a sustainable world that you would like to live in, that would satisfy your deepest dreams and longings? Second If you can get there to that picture, you are under no obligation whatsoever to tell us how to get there from here. This is the easiest way to shoot down a visionary is to have someone express a vision and you say, oh yeah, but how do we get there from here? And if the visionary can't tell you, then you sweep away the vision. This is our rational left brain working again. My experience in having now many times created a vision and then actually brought it in some form into being, my experience is that I never know at the beginning how to get there. But as I articulate the vision, put it out, share it with people, and it gets more polished and more real, the path reveals itself. And it would never reveal itself if I were not putting out the vision of what I really want and finding that other people really want it too. Holding on to the vision reveals the path, and there's no need to judge the vision by whether the path is apparent. Finally, a few more points. As I said already, the visioning, wherever it comes from, I don't understand this at all, isn't a rational place, and it doesn't come from figuring out. But visions do have to be honed by rationality. There does need to be a responsibility in vision. I can't envision climbing to the top of a tree and flying off. I may really want to do that, but my rationality and my knowledge of how the world works tells me that that's not a responsible vision. Visions become responsible through all sorts of processes. The best one that I know is sharing it with other people who bring in their knowledge, their point of view, and their vision. The more a vision is shared, the more responsible it gets, also the more ethical. Another thing I've discovered is once I am clear and have worked on a vision, it becomes more and more real to me. I can literally see. I've been working on this vision of a sustainable world for a long time. I can literally see it in technicolor, in some detail, and it gets better and better. The more I learn, the more I ask other people. It lives in me as a sustainable world that isn't a sacrifice or a bunch of difficult regulations, a sustainable world that I would love to live in. And having such a vision alive in me prevents me from selling out to something less that someone else may be offering me, such as the vision of perpetual economic growth, which is pretty much the vision that the whole field of economics gives us. Growth isn't what I want. Growth has nothing to do with what I want. And I think the only reason growth, which is a terribly abstract and when you think about it, stupid vision of the future, I think the only reason that can be sold so easily in every policy arena is that there's no alternative vision. I am amazed at the practicality of visioning in terms of helping you to find your way. It is of course a world where resource regeneration is at least as great as resource depletion. It's a world where emissions are no greater than the ability of the planet to absorb and process those emissions. Of course it's a world where population is stable or maybe even decreasing human population, where prices internalize all costs. Of course this is all part of the vision. A place where no one is hungry or desperately poor, a place where there is true enduring democracy. These are some of the things I have in my part of the vision. But most of those are physically necessary or socially necessary parts of the vision. They form the responsible structure that you know has got to be part of the vision. But then what else? What more? What will make this a world that would make you excited to get up in the morning and go to work in it? Visioning is the first step and the continuous step, because visions continue to get revised and shared and built and elaborated and made more rich and more true. I'm going to ask you in a moment to close your eyes, because that's the best place to find a vision, is within yourself without distractions. And I'm going to lead just a little, ask you to literally look in your mind's eye at a sustainable world. And what I caution you to do, since I've done this now many times, is don't push it. Don't feel that you're a failure if nothing comes. And don't grasp too hard to see something. Just notice what happens. That's all you have to do. This needs to be a very relaxing exercise. Start near at home, in your home, whatever your home looks like, a home you would love to live in, that's comfortable and beautiful and sustainable. And look around. What does that home look like, inside and outside? Who's there? What does it feel like to live there, to work there, to eat there, to get up in the morning? What does it feel like to walk out the door into your community, your neighborhood? Rural or urban or in between? What's the neighborhood like? One you would love to live in, that is sustainable, and that knows itself to be sustainable, a world that could be handed on intact or even better to the children and the grandchildren of that neighborhood.